They are watching me. I never imagined my life would turn into something like this. Something worth whispering about in fear, in disbelief, in quiet obsession. I was just a man on a plane. A husband. A father. A businessman from a small town, running a modest recycling company, thinking mostly about invoices, employees, and the mundane grind of daily life. Nothing unusual. Nothing that could hint at the extraordinary waiting above. The flight was routine. New York bound. I had meetings to attend to contracts to secure, deals to finalize. Beside me, a teenager tapped away at his phone, oblivious. Across the aisle, an older man snored softly. Flight attendants moved with quiet efficiency. Everything normal. Until my eyes wandered out the window. At first, I dismissed it as a trick of light, sunlight reflecting off the clouds, perhaps. But then the shape persisted. A perfect, metallic sphere, hovering 30, maybe 50 meters below the plane. Blending. Shimmering. Smooth. It moved with purpose. Not falling. Not swaying. Deliberate. Calculated. Impossible. My heart slammed against my chest. The engines hummed, indifferent. Passengers oblivious. And I, frozen. Forehead pressed to the cold glass, staring at something no one else could see. I wanted to call for help, words lodged in my throat. How do you describe something impossible? Then it zigzagged. Quick. Top. Inhuman. And stopped. Completely still, as if watching me. I blinked, and it vanished. Not up. Not down. Simply gone. A chill ran down my spine, cold sweat dampened my palms. I pressed my hand to the window, searching the endless blue. Nothing. Serene. Untouched. Then the radio crackled. Not the pilot's voice. Not crew chatter. Just static whispers. My name. I swear I heard it. My body froze, eyes dotted. No one noticed. No one reacted. I tried to laugh, planes hum, radios glitch, brains imagine. But deep down the chill remained. The sphere hadn't been random. It hadn't vanished by chance. It had noticed me. And in that moment I realized something that would haunt me forever. Whatever I saw was not finished with me. Part 2. I landed back in my small town feeling restless, uneasy, as if the sky itself had followed me home. The streets were quiet. The air smelled faintly of wet asphalt and pine. My car tires crunched on the gravel driveway. I could feel my heartbeat hammering in my chest, my palms still damp. Inside, my wife greeted me with her usual smile, oblivious to the storm inside me. "How was the flight?" she asked gently. I forced a smile, said it was fine. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me. Later that evening, I checked the company's facility. The recycling plant was quiet, the machines resting, but the night carried a subtle hum, almost like a vibration in the air itself. Walking past the sorting lines, I noticed something unusual. One of my employees, Martin, had left the crate slightly open. Inside, a faint glow pulsed from an object I did not recognize. I stepped closer. The air smelled metallic, sharp, electric. A sudden flash of light made me recoil. My heartbeat accelerated. I could barely breathe. The object was not ordinary. Not human-made. That night I tried to sleep. But dreams came fast, vivid, impossible. They were there. Figures pale and elongated, moving in the shadows of my bedroom. Voices whispered in a language I could not understand, yet somehow comprehended. One of them stepped closer. "You have something we need," it said. "One of your workers found our artifact. Return it, or your family will vanish." I woke with a start. Sweat drenched my shirt. Heart pounding. My children slept quietly, unaware of the nightmare hovering over us. The message was clear. They were watching, waiting, threatening. And I realized, in that moment, that my life would never be the same. Everything I knew, everything I trusted, was now intertwined with something I could not control. Whatever had begun in the sky during my flight was only the beginning, and the true ordeal was about to start. Part 3. The morning after the dream, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. Even the sunlight seemed sharper, intrusive. I drove to the recycling plant, hands gripping the wheel, knuckles white. The facility looked normal. Machines idle. Workers moving with their usual rhythm. But something had changed. I noticed subtle irregularities, glances exchanged too quickly, footsteps that seemed out of place. Martin, the employee from the previous night, greeted me with a forced smile. "Good morning, boss," he said. Yet there was tension in his shoulders, an edge I had never seen before. I walked past the sorting line, scanning for anything unusual. Then I saw it again, the faint glow of the crate. My pulse quickened. I couldn't help but reach toward it. My hand trembled as it hovered above the box. Inside, the object pulsed subtly like a heartbeat. Metallic, smooth humming softly. I could feel a vibration through my fingertips, almost alive. Questions swarmed my mind. How had it come here? What did it want? And why had they targeted my family? I stepped back and looked around. Workers moved casually and aware, but I couldn't shake the sensation that something or someone was observing every motion. That evening, I checked security footage. Nothing obvious appeared at first. Then, on one clip, a shadow flickered across the frame, too fast to be human. It vanished before I could blink. I knew then that this was no ordinary situation. This was deliberate, targeted, and my family, my life, were at stake. I had to find out which employee had found the artifact. But every question seemed to breed more uncertainty, and every answer felt like it could be the wrong one. That night, I couldn't sleep. Footsteps echoed in my mind. Whispers swirled in the shadows of my bedroom, and the same message lingered: return it, or your family will vanish. The sense of dread grew heavier, and I realized the nightmare was only beginning. Part 4. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The artifact wasn't just some strange object. It was the key, and someone or something wanted it back. The next morning, I arrived early at the recycling plant. Workers were still arriving, sleepy, unaware. I pretended to check paperwork, but my eyes never left the crate. I noticed Martin approaching, cautious, glancing over his shoulder. "Boss, everything okay?" he asked, voice tight. I forced a casual nod. But inside, panic prickled my skin. I decided to review inventory logs, quietly, searching for anything unusual. Each name, each crate. I cross-checked. Heart hammering. Mind racing. And then it hit me Martin had recently handled a batch flagged for special sorting. The same night the glow appeared. He had found it. I stepped away, hands trembling, breathing shallow. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a metallic tang. It felt like a warning. Later, I attempted to talk to Martin, subtly probing for details. His eyes darted nervously. Words stumbled out of his mouth. He denied seeing anything unusual, but I could feel him hiding the truth. Back in my office, I examined the crate again. The object pulsed faintly, almost as if aware of my gaze. I could feel a vibration through the floor, faint, persistent. I decided to keep it hidden, at least until I understood its power. But the feeling of being watched intensified. Lights flickered without reason. Shadows moved against the grain of reality. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in the house, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator felt amplified. Every shadow seemed to reach for me. And once again, the whisper came, return it, or your family will vanish. I realized that hiding the artifact was no longer an option. The next steps I took would determine not only the fate of my business, but the safety of my family. Part 5. That night's sleep eluded me. Every creak in the house sounded like a warning. Every shadow seemed alive. I could feel their presence, intangible but undeniable. I returned to the crate, now hidden in my office. The artifact pulsed softly, a heartbeat echoing through the room. I reached out, and a chill ran through my fingers. It was not metal. It was something else. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently. The hum of the building changed, rising in pitch, vibrating through my chest. A whisper, urgent, cutting through the silence. You must return it, or your family will vanish. I stumbled back, heart racing. The room seemed to shrink, shadows stretching unnaturally. Every nerve on fire, every breath shallow. I glanced out the window. Outside, the sky pulsed faintly, as if in rhythm with the artifact. A soft glow, impossible to explain, hovered just beyond the treetops. Fear rooted me to the spot. Every instinct screamed, run, hide, protect my family. But curiosity, dreadfully human, forced me closer to the crate. Then a sound soft at first, then unmistakable. Footsteps. Not from outside. Not from the street. Inside the house. I froze, every hair on end. A figure materialized in the corner, pale, elongated, alien. Its eyes bore into mine. It did not speak, yet its message was clear. Return it, or suffer the consequences. I barely slept that night. Every whisper, every shadow, every flicker of light became a threat. I realized then, my life, my family, my very reality had shifted irreversibly. The artifact had chosen me, and I had no choice but to confront what was coming next. Part 6. Morning came, but sleep had left me hollow. Every sound outside, the wind, the birds, the distant hum of traffic felt amplified, threatening. I knew I had to act. At the plant, I watched Martin carefully. Every glance, every gesture seemed calculated. I approached him slowly, trying to appear casual. "Martin," I said softly, "can we talk in private?" His eyes flicked to mine, then away. A bead of sweat traced his temple. He nodded silently. We moved to a storage room, empty, dimly lit. I closed the door behind us. The hum of machinery was distant now, replaced by the pulse of my own heartbeat. "Martin," I whispered, "something dangerous has come into our lives. The artifact. We need to talk about it." His face paled. Didn't he know it was that important?" he stammered. "Boss, I just found it in the shipment. Didn't he touch it? Didn't he tell anyone?" I studied him carefully. Was he lying? Hiding something? The artifact had drawn their attention, whatever it was, it had marked us. I decided to show him the crate. The faint glow pulsed softly as if aware of our presence. Martin froze, his eyes wide with fear. "It is not safe," I said quietly. "Whatever this is, it is not human, and it is watching us. They will come if we don't return it." Martin swallowed hard. "Return it, but who are they? What do they want?" I shook my head. Didn't he have the answers? One thing was clear. We had to act carefully. Every decision, every step could mean life or death, and the first choice would be to protect my family at all costs. Part 7. The next day, Martin and I began our careful investigation. We moved through the plant quietly, checking shipments, cross-referencing logs. Every crate, every movement felt like it could hide a clue or a threat. The artifact pulsed faintly from its hidden crate, almost like a heartbeat echoing through the walls. Its glow illuminated the dust in the air, casting long, strange shadows. I could feel it watching us back. Martin whispered, "Boss, I saw something last night." A figure, outside the plant, watching us. I froze. We were not alone. I nodded slowly. We had to be careful. Even a single mistake could alert them. We examined the crates that Martin had handled. One in particular seemed to resonate, humming slightly when we approached. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently. A cold draft swept through the plant. Machines vibrated, though nothing was running. "They were here," Martin whispered, voice shaking. I could feel the air thicken, pressure against my chest. The shadows seemed to shift unnaturally. Something was moving among us unseen. We decided to secure the artifact and examine it in isolation. As we moved it, the glow intensified, pulsing faster, almost like a warning. Suddenly, a low hum filled the room, vibrating through our bones. I clutched Martin's arm. The sound grew louder, until it felt like the walls themselves were alive. Then silence. Complete suffocating silence. And in that moment, I understood. They were always watching. Always waiting. We had touched something beyond our comprehension. And from that point on, nothing would ever be the same. Part 8. The days that followed were unbearable. Every sound in my house, every movement outside the plant felt like a warning. Sleep eluded me completely. Martin and I worked cautiously, keeping the artifact hidden, checking logs, monitoring shipments. Yet the feeling of being observed never left. One evening, while securing the crate, the lights flickered violently. A chill ran down my spine. The hum of the building shifted, low and vibrating. Then I saw movement in the shadows. A tall figure, pale, almost translucent, gliding silently along the walls. Its eyes locked onto mine. Martin gasped, clutching my arm. I could feel every hair on my body stand on end. "They were here," he whispered, voice trembling. I realized then that hiding was no longer an option. They were testing me, probing my limits. The artifact had drawn them here, and now my family's safety was at stake. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Every instinct screamed to flee, but I knew I had to act. That night, I returned home to find strange marks etched into the wall symbols I couldn't recognize. The air smelled faintly metallic, and a low hum vibrated through the floor. My wife noticed my agitation. "Are you alright?" she asked softly. I forced to smile, but my eyes darted to every shadow. I could feel them watching. That night, I dreamed again. The figures returned, pale, elongated. "Return it, or your family will vanish," they intoned. I woke drenched in sweat, heart pounding. I understood then the magnitude of the threat. The artifact was not just a curiosity, it was a beacon. And the beings watching me would not stop until it was returned. Part 9. The next day at the plant, tension hung thick in the air. Every sound echoed louder than it should. Every shadow seemed to shift as if alive. Martin and I moved carefully, watching each other, watching every crate. We knew the artifact was dangerous, but we didn't yet understand how far-reaching the danger was. Suddenly, a machine along the line started on its own. Metal clanged, gears whirred violently. The lights flickered. A shadow moved through the corner of my eye. Martin froze, whispering, "Did you see that?" I nodded, heart racing. It wasn't human. It was something else watching, waiting. I tried to secure the artifact, but the crate vibrated violently, glowing brighter. A low hum filled the room, rising to a deafening pitch. Return it, or suffer, a voice whispered in my mind. Panic surged. Machines clattered, shadows darted. Martin and I ducked behind a conveyor belt. Outside, a faint light flickered in the sky. It pulsed rhythmically, in sync with the artifact. The air outside felt charged, heavy. I realized then that the threat was immediate. This was no longer subtle observation. It was direct. And if we didn't T-act, my family would pay the price. That night, I returned home, dread coiling in my stomach. Shadows seemed to crawl along the walls. My children slept peacefully, unaware of the danger pressing close. But I could feel them watching me, waiting. As I drifted into a restless sleep, the figures returned. Pale, elongated voices resonating in my mind. One of your workers has found it. Return it, or your family will vanish. I woke with a start. Sweat drenched my shirt. And I understood whatever was coming next would change everything. Part 10. That night, exhaustion pulled me into a restless sleep. The house was silent, yet I felt a presence heavy, inescapable. In the darkness of my dream, the figures appeared. Tall, pale, their eyes glowing faintly. They surrounded me, yet I felt no fear, only the weight of inevitability. A voice echoed in my mind, neither male nor female, just intent. One of your workers has found what belongs to us. Return it, or your family will vanish. I woke with a start, sweat dripping, heart hammering. The room was dark, but I could still feel them watching, patient. Every instinct screamed, act, protect, move. I glanced at the crate. The artifact pulsed softly, almost sentient, as if aware of a command given in my dream. Questions swarmed my mind. Who was the worker? Where was the artifact originally from? And most frightening of all, what would they do if I failed? I looked at my sleeping family, peaceful and unaware. I swallowed hard, understanding the magnitude of what I must do. This was no longer just a strange event. It was a warning. And in that moment, I knew the nightmare had only begun. The figures had made contact, and the task they set before me was clear. Return the artifact, or my family would pay the ultimate price. I lay awake, planning, calculating, fearing. The first series ended not with answers, but with the choice, a terrible, impossible choice. And somewhere beyond the veil of sleep, I could feel them waiting, watching, patient, unforgiving.